All right. Good morning. Hello, my name is Jeff Mailman, and I will be moderating this conversation with the candidates for Redondo Beach City Treasurer, brought to you by the Redondo Beach Chamber of Commerce. Um, there are two candidates running for this seat on the March ballot, and today I will be interviewing Matt Kilroy. Matt and all the candidates for the seat will be asked the same questions, and we'll spend a total of 30 minutes speaking with them about their vision for the future of Redondo Beach. So let's get started. Matt, welcome aboard, and you have a minute to do your opening introduction.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. And good morning to everyone out there. As Jeff mentioned, my name is Matt Kilroy, and I'm running for City Treasurer of Redondo Beach. I'm a 39-year resident of Redondo Beach. My wife and I, who we've been married for 44 years, have raised our 3 children here, and they all still live here, along with my 6 grandchildren. I'm a graduate of the School of Engineering of UCLA, and I'm now retired, but I worked over 20 years in the aerospace industry as a division manager covering the Western United States. After 20 years of working there, I decided for a career change, and I got my teaching credential in science, high school science. Really, that went fast. And taught at Redondo High School and Adams Middle School. So I guess we're at our minute.
Yeah, well, and you'll be able to pepper in some other things as we go along, but let's
sure.
just jump into the questions. Can you please share your top 2 or 3 priorities for the city of Redondo Beach if you're elected city treasurer, and what are your plans to accomplish those?
Sure. And I think the first and foremost priority of a city treasurer is to protect the taxpayers' money. It is the number one job of a city treasurer. To do that, I'll make sure that our investment policy is being followed by our investment company, because Redondo Beach actually has an outside investment firm that handles the day-to-day management of the funds of the portfolio. So it's important to make sure the policy is being administered properly. The second part of that, in the same vein, how will I accomplish that goal, is the state updates their guidelines. They're really more than guidelines, it's really state law as to what local agencies can do with their funds and how they can invest them. And so we'll need to make sure that the city's current policy reflects any changes that the state makes. So there needs to be an annual review of the city's investment policy compared against the state's guidelines, and make sure that we are following within the state guidelines to keep that taxpayer money safe and to make sure our investments are what they should be. So that's the number one job of the treasurer. My second priority would be to look at our revenue and make sure that our revenue coming in is what it's supposed to be, because we get our revenue from the state, from the county, in form of sales tax coming back to us from the county and state, and property tax revenues coming back from the state specifically. There have also been issues in the past where utility users tax wasn't properly remitted back to the city. So there needs to be some auditing of those to make sure the city is actually receiving all the funds it's supposed to be receiving. Lastly, I think we can improve the transparency of the city treasurer's position and what the public is able to access. The city's website is really rather kind of difficult to navigate, and for citizens to be able to access the information that they should be able to access. What funds are coming in, how much, what are the trends, are they going up, going down, what are the projections, what are our expenses, how's the portfolio doing? There's a lot of questions that should be easy to be able to see by accessing and navigating the city's website that I don't think are very easy for the average citizen to find. So I would work to improve the access in the city's website. In addition, part of that transparency is being available to the public. So I would make myself available to the public to answer questions and be able to um, open the door, so to speak, as to what's going on in the city's finances. So those would probably be my big three priorities.
Great, thank you. So what do you see as the treasurer's role in overseeing and protecting the city's finances, and what are your specific plans to protect city funds?
Well, as I mentioned, the city treasurer is the guardian of the taxpayer funds. It's imperative that the quality of investments be constantly monitored to ensure that they comply with the city council's approved fiscal policy and the state of California guidelines for local agency investments. Beyond the investment portfolio, the city treasurer should also be auditing expenditures and contracts, comparing them with what was approved. A number of citizens have asked me about those kind of issues and what state or what oversight there is with regards to expenses going on in the city. So I think that's appropriate for a city treasurer as guardian of the taxpayer funds to make sure that those taxpayer funds are being spent accordingly. Lastly, there's a number of different pots of money that the city has. Many of those pots have very specific uses and can't be used or shouldn't be used for other expenses. And so I think part of the role is making sure that those monies are being spent appropriately in the categories they belong in, that we're not mixing pots of money, that we're following the right protocols for using those. So um, I think that's probably the biggest part for protecting taxpayers' finances and protecting the city's finances.
Thank you. As an elected city treasurer, do you believe that you work for the city council, or the residents, and why? What accountability does the city treasurer's office have to the residents of Redondo Beach?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually think ultimately the treasurer works for the citizens. The citizens are the ones who vote them into office. Now, obviously, the treasurer, working with the finance director, should provide valuable information to the city council in the form of economic forecasts, revenue trends, what are the available resources, so that the council has accurate information to create a budget. Ultimately, the treasurer is accountable to the citizens of Redondo Beach. And the highest priority of the city treasurer is to report to the citizens the status of the city's resources and finances. The treasurer should provide an open and clear communication with the citizens regarding the status of our investments, as well as obviously adhering to the published budget and predictions and regarding revenues. Every 4 years, the citizens get to weigh in on the quality of the treasurer's performance. We call that an election. And I think that's very appropriate. And I think that's where the ultimate responsibility of the treasurer lies, is in being responsible to the citizens of Redondo Beach and the taxpayers of Redondo Beach, and making sure the funds that they put in trust to the city to be spent properly are spent and managed properly.
So as you know, not all cities have an elected city treasurer. What do you believe are the advantages and or disadvantages for Redondo Beach having that elected city treasurer position?
Yeah, so I think it kind of goes back to the previous question, being that the treasurer's role in Redondo Beach is that of a financial watchdog for the citizens. As such, it's appropriate for the citizens to choose who they want to fulfill that role. And that role has changed over the years and decades. If the treasurer was hired by the city manager or appointed by the city council, then they would then be responsible to whoever is the one who's actually hiring them. So I think having an elected treasurer, although may cause some additional expense in some regards, on the other hand, in the form of an election, on the other hand, I think it really gives the citizens the best oversight and the most independent oversight of the city's finances. Uh, I don't think having an appointed or hired, I actually think if you actually hired somebody full time, it would be more expensive. This is a part-time job um, for the city. And overall, I think the cost would be more if you actually ended up having to try to hire a treasurer from the outside. And I don't think the citizens would have the independent oversight they have now.
All right. Well, what do you believe is the most challenging part of crafting a city budget? And then please explain how you would deal with that in your role as city treasurer.
Well, as a two-term city council member, I am uniquely aware amongst the candidates for treasurer of the challenges of crafting a city budget. And there are always two parts to that city budget, and that is the wants and needs and the resources. And ultimately, you have to balance the needs with the resources. And how do you do that? You prioritize your needs. You look at them. Are they safety related? Are they something that's infrastructure related that we need to do repairs on, or basic needs of the community? And are they something else? So you've got to look at that. You've got to look at your needs. You have to prioritize them. Then you have to look at your revenues. And this is where some experience pays off. You need to project your revenues for the following year. And you need to project, are they going up? Are they going down? How much are they going to be? And how sensitive those projections are to changes in the economy. COVID really exposed some vulnerabilities that all cities and agencies have with regards to the revenue streams. Some revenue streams maintained their full input into the city, for instance, property tax. Other revenue streams, like hotel tax, took a huge hit from COVID. So it's important to not only be able to project what you think that revenue is going to be for the following year, but also look and see how sensitive it is to outside forces and how that might actually change. And what is your backup plan? What are you going to do? What reserves are you going to draw on if revenues don't come in the way you expected them to come in? So I think those are some of the challenges. And like I said, I've spent 8 years on the city council, 8 years making budgets, putting together budgets, building consensus, because that's an important part. Different council members will obviously have different priorities and what they think should be done. But generally speaking, we should put public safety first. We should put infrastructure second. And we should look then after that, what else can we do for the citizens in the community with that budget and those needs? But yeah, to me, those are the challenges, balancing the revenue and looking at the needs.
Good, thank you. So what specific skills would you bring to the city treasurer's office?
Yeah, so I think my skill set is pretty broad and deep. I'm a graduate from the UCLA School of Engineering, which most people would look at as being a pretty academically high achievement. Um, but being from the School of Engineering has taught me to be very analytical and to really be able to dive into numbers and separate, call it the wheat from the chaff, and be able to look at whether it's a spreadsheet or engineering calculations. I'm a numbers guy, and looking through those numbers and looking at trends and looking at analyzing it is something that comes natural for me. And my education has just accented those abilities and kind of highlighted them for me. I also spent 20 years as a division manager in the aerospace industry and had to deal with annually budgets, capital projects, forecasting what the expense would be, looking at overages, managing money coming in, money going out. So that was something I did for 20 years. I was a PTA auditor and actually had 2 honorary service awards from the PTA. I was AYSO treasurer. I was actually served on the AYSO board for over 30 years. I'm still on the AYSO board. 6 years as regional commissioner, where you're basically in charge of the whole region, which includes budgets, revenues, forecasting, what you're going to get in the form of revenues and how that's going to be spent, working with a diverse group of people who are all volunteers. And I think that's really important because I think the treasurer ultimately has to work with a group of people, has to work with the Budget and Finance Commission, has to work with the finance director and city staff. And so I think that also brings a set of skills that are unique to me as a candidate.
15
I also,
minutes. We are halfway through. 15 minutes left.
thank you.
And no stress.
I
We've only got
also,
2 more questions left, so you
yeah,
take
we're
all the
good.
time you need, Matt.
Okay, so I also served on the City Council's Audit Subcommittee. I served on the School Bond Oversight Committee. I've served on Measure E. Well, the Measure E is the School Bond Oversight Committee. So I've been doing this kind of work for over 30 years between financial statements, audits, budget predictions, forecasts, and the actual treasurer's role itself for over 30 years, serving the community, serving the city, and doing it professionally. So that's about it.
Right, thanks. So when dealing with city funds, transparency is critical. What will you do to make sure that the public has easy and clear access to how the city's finances work?
Well, yes, it was one of my top priorities to make the city's website easier to navigate and easier for a citizen, for the average citizen, to be able to look at city finances and understand where the revenue is coming from, whether the trends are going up or going down, what kind of financial state. I've had a number of people ask me about the financial status of Redondo Beach, and I've told them we look pretty good. And when I was on city council, we added 3 new hotels, which really boosted our revenue and helped, although it wasn't very good during COVID, has really helped the city recover after COVID because the hotels are doing very well. And it was our council that added the hotel in the harbor area and at the time it was 2 hotels up here by the freeway. It's now 3 hotels. All those hotels are doing very well. And it's that kind of information that the citizens should be able to access easily from the website. I would certainly make myself available, whether it's at council meetings or individually when the citizens wanted to meet. I'm retired, so any time of the day would work for me. I'm always willing to go and have a cup of coffee with a citizen or a group and meet with them to discuss their concerns and to lay out the status of the city's finances.
Right. Well, we've made it to our final question, which is sort of a catch-all. Is there anything that we haven't mentioned that you want to make sure that we discuss?
Well, most of my campaign literature has actually focused on 2 things: experience and integrity. And frankly, all the experience and qualifications in the world don't really matter at all if you don't have integrity. The treasurer's position, above all, integrity is a must. If people can't trust what you say, if you have an agenda other than being open and honest about the city's finances, I don't think you can serve the citizens very well as treasurer. I believe I have that integrity. I believe that when people look at my 30 years plus of service to the community, they will see that I have always been honest, forthright. They haven't always agreed with me. I totally understand that, but I've never had people come and say I've made false statements. I've never had people sit there and question the truth or accuracy of what I've said. Like I said, they may have disagreed with it, they may interpret things differently, but ultimately, integrity, I think, is a big issue, and I invite the voters to take a look at that from the candidates and to make a decision. Of course, I'm asking the voters for their support. I believe I have the experience with over 30 years dealing with financial issues, and I believe I have the integrity. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Well, thanks to Matt Kilroy. Our time here is up, and I'd like to thank you for spending the time with us today, and best of luck on March 7th. I'd also like to remind everybody who's watching that these taped interviews of all the candidates will be available on the Chamber's YouTube site shortly. And thank you very much, everybody. Please get out there and vote. Thanks again, Matt.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.